Gloria Grahame was once Tinseltown's shining star, a captivating femme fatale in the era of black and white cinema. Yet behind the scenes, her life unraveled in a way that still stirs debate. Back in Hollywood's golden age, image was everything, and Gloria had the looks, the talent, and the spark to become a legend. But just when she seemed destined to rise even further, a scandal exploded and left her career in tatters. It wasn't only the rumor itself that knocked her off her pedestal, it was the appalled reaction from an entire industry that turned its back on her. Even today, people continue to whisper about the disturbing details that overshadowed her accomplishments. Was she a victim of Hollywood's relentless machine, or did her own choices set her on a collision course with disaster? Let's peel back the curtain on the life and times of an actress who defied expectations, dazzled in noir classics, and then found herself exiled from the very stage she'd dreamed of dominating. From her earliest performances to the relationships that set tongues wagging, Gloria Grahame's descent remains one of Hollywood's most infamous downfalls. And despite the decades that have passed, her story still feels raw and unnerving. Proof that some scandals never truly fade from memory. Early spark and swift rise. Gloria Grahame was born in Los Angeles in 1923, practically with bright lights in her eyes. Her mother, an actress and acting coach known professionally as Jean Graham, made sure Gloria was no stranger to Hollywood's backstage corridors. It wasn't unusual to see an array of show business folks drifting in and out of their house, and young Gloria became well acquainted with the high stakes of film life from the start. For a child with big dreams, the energy of 1930s Los Angeles was impossible to resist. By her teenage years, she already knew she wanted a life on stage. Before her 21st birthday, Gloria made the leap most starstruck hopefuls could only imagine. She found herself on Broadway playing a small role in a production called The World's Full of Girls. Although the part was minor, her aura on stage caught the eye of Louis B. Mayer, the head of MGM Studios. One night, he just happened to be seated in the audience scouting for fresh talent. Mayer, known for discovering marquee names like Greta Garbo, saw the potential in Gloria's beguiling gaze and subtle charm. He wasted no time offering her a contract with MGM. On paper, signing to MGM in the 1940s was any aspiring starlet's dream. The studio was a powerhouse, churning out films that would define American cinema. If you were on Mayer's radar, you could expect top-tier roles, at least that's what everyone assumed. Behind the glitz, though, there were darker realities. Mayer was a legendary figure, but his reputation for mistreating actors was also well documented. Future controversies, including reports of pressuring young starlets and micromanaging their lives, would eventually leak out. And for Gloria, that controlling environment meant relentless scrutiny, including critiques of her looks that dug at every insecurity she had. All the same, it was 1944. A contract with MGM meant prestige, a decent paycheck, and a hope for bigger roles. Gloria threw herself into studio life, expecting to land enviable parts in the next wave of big-budget motion pictures. The unspoken agreement was simple: fulfill your contract, follow the rules, and you'll be rewarded. Unfortunately, Hollywood can be fickle, and some scars don't heal easily. For Gloria, the chase for perfection was about to begin in earnest. Initially, Gloria's gamble seemed to pay off. She snared a role in It's a Wonderful Life, 1946, a film that, in hindsight, would become a holiday classic for generations. Playing Violet Bick, the cheeky flirt who always tested the edges of propriety, Gloria managed to shine despite sharing screen time with the much bigger star, Jimmy Stewart. At first, it looked like her path was set. The camera loved her. Producers noticed her ability to project both innocence and a hint of underlying danger. But underneath that cinematic dazzle, Gloria battled an all too common Hollywood demon: insecurity. She believed her upper lip was too thin. On film, she saw tiny ridges that no one else seemed to notice, but that left her feeling flawed in front of the camera. Around that time, plastic surgery was nowhere near as widespread or routine as it is now, so Gloria improvised. She tucked cotton into her mouth while filming to give her lips a fuller shape. Naturally, the contraption sometimes slipped out, leading to embarrassing moments whenever a director called cut. Her personal life wasn't much smoother. The starlet took repeated trips down the aisle, beginning with actor Stanley Clements, whom she married in 1945. This relationship dissolved almost as soon as it began, with a divorce finalizing in 1948. Only one day later, she walked into a second marriage, this time with Nicholas Ray, a promising Hollywood director famous for his difficult, temperamental brilliance. Ray was controlling to an extreme, and some claimed he could be downright menacing when he felt a scene was slipping from his grasp. Their collaboration on the 1950 noir classic In a Lonely Place gave Gloria a chance to showcase her acting skills, but their marriage was reportedly unraveling behind the scenes. Sure enough, the dynamic was toxic. He demanded creative control, not just on set, but in her daily life. Rumors swirled that he forced her to sign a bizarre contract allowing him to command her actions during work hours. Unsurprisingly, this arrangement pushed them even closer to separation. By the time In a Lonely Place premiered, Nicholas Ray and Gloria Grahame were only putting on a charade of being a married couple. Publicly, they seemed the glamorous Hollywood duo. Privately, they lived in separate spaces, tiptoeing around each other to avoid being fired. As shocking as these behind the scenes details were, something even more explosive loomed in Gloria's future, something that would overshadow her multiple marriages and quiet insecurities: the scandal that shook Hollywood. In the 1950s, Gloria Grahame was on the verge of clinching real stardom. She'd drawn critical acclaim for her sultry roles, particularly in film noir, and audiences flocked to see her femme fatale performances. Then, in 1952, she took home an Academy Award for her supporting role in The Bad and the Beautiful. This was no small feat, especially since she had barely more than 9 minutes of screen time. It looked like the world was hers for the taking. But rumors about her personal life had started to gain traction, and they soon overpowered any Oscar glow she might have enjoyed. The real firestorm began when whispers spread that her second husband, Nicholas Ray, had found Gloria in a compromising situation with someone in the family, someone alarmingly young. Ray's son, Anthony, was the alleged individual. Some said he was just 13 at the time, a claim that remains heavily disputed. To this day, some biographers insist the story was invented by Nicholas Ray out of malice. Others note that eventually, after Anthony reached adulthood, he and Gloria really did begin a relationship and married in 1960. Hollywood insiders couldn't contain their shock. This union between a former stepmother and her stepson triggered an avalanche of condemnation. Nobody seemed to care that Anthony was grown by the time they officially tied the knot. The entire scenario came off as taboo in the extreme and left the press salivating for scandalous details. Gloria's ex-husbands closed ranks against her, fueling a narrative that she was unfit to be a mother. Court battles escalated, with custody fights over her two children overshadowing any lingering respect for her acting prowess. In a conservative industry that watched its image more protectively than a hawk, the fallout was swift. Directors stopped calling. Studio heads who used to greet her warmly now avoided her entirely. Even loyal fans began to distance themselves, uncomfortable with the magnitude of the allegations swirling around her. No matter how brilliantly she'd performed in classics like In a Lonely Place or It's a Wonderful Life, It was the scandal of her personal life that dominated the conversation. Downfall and desperate struggles. Gloria tried to soldier on in the aftermath, but her golden era was gone. The phone rang less and less with offers for new roles, forcing her to pivot to television. For someone who once lit up the big screen, that switch felt like a devastating downgrade. But Hollywood is ruthless. The producers who had championed her at MGM and RKO faded into the background, unwilling to risk the backlash of associating with her. Her personal life took an equally bleak turn. Gloria's third husband, television producer Cy Howard, divorced her in 1957, citing mental cruelty. Perhaps more damaging, he launched a scathing campaign to gain sole custody of their daughter. Nicholas Ray followed suit, dragging Gloria into an ugly legal battle over the child they'd shared. The tabloid headlines wrote themselves, pointing to her alleged moral failings and the unstoppable rumor mill that had linked her to unspeakable acts. Even though her professional momentum was stalling, Gloria's troubles weren't limited to her public image. Her psychological state deteriorated as well. After a major breakdown in 1964, she resorted to electroshock therapy, a controversial treatment believed at the time to help with severe mental distress. Described by some as a last-ditch effort, the therapy underscored just how cornered she felt. Then came the unkindest cut of all. The plastic surgery she once embraced to plump her lips or smooth her face became sources of ridicule. Instead of preserving her youth, they were damaging her ability to convey emotion on camera, a fatal blow to any serious actor. Meanwhile, older friends and colleagues sometimes tried to throw her a lifeline, only for producers to step in and balk at the negative publicity she might bring. For a time, she performed on stage in regional theater productions, out of the glare of Hollywood's relentless spotlight. She still had the drive, there was no question about that, but with each passing year, the offers dwindled, and the memory of her scandal overshadowed all else. As the 1970s dawned, Gloria found herself at yet another crossroads. In 1974, she was diagnosed with breast cancer, a frightening reality for anyone, let alone a performer. Yet in a stroke of unexpected luck, her first round of radiation therapy succeeded in pushing the disease into remission. For a moment, this development acted as a jolt of energy. She changed her lifestyle, no more chain smoking, limited drinking, and a renewed focus on healthy living. Perhaps the worst was behind her. During this period, Gloria tried to revive her career and mend her personal life. She moved between the United States and Britain, often performing in stage plays. In Liverpool, she struck up a relationship with a much younger man named Peter Turner. He was an actor barely in his 20s, looking to find his own place in the acting world. Their relationship raised eyebrows, given the age gap, and Gloria's still lingering scandalous reputation, but neither seemed to care. For a while, they found happiness. Encouraged by remission and new companionship, Gloria threw herself back into the hustle of auditioning and stage work. She wanted to recapture the spark she had when she first stepped onto a Broadway stage, or dazzled audiences in It's a Wonderful Life. Some audiences, especially in the UK, viewed her with open-minded curiosity, eager to see if this Hollywood veteran could still command a performance. For a time, it seemed like a second act was possible. She was older, certainly. The offers weren't leading roles in major Hollywood films, but the stage roles gave her room to show that her talent had never actually disappeared, but hope can be fleeting. During these years, the public was also developing a growing fascination with behind-the-scenes Hollywood gossip. Magazines and TV segments explored the darkest corners of the Golden Age, recycling stories about starlets being exploited by studios or succumbing to personal demons. Invariably, Gloria's name came up, pinned once more to the scandal that had fueled her downfall. There was no escaping it. Final curtain and lasting legacy. By 1980, the cancer Gloria had beaten returned with a vengeance. Facing a new onslaught of radiation treatment, she balked. Maybe it was exhaustion from years of stress, or simply denial that the disease was back. She decided against further medical intervention, hoping instead to carry on as best she could. She was still slated for more stage work, still hungry for applause and that particular magic of performing live. Then, during rehearsals in England, she collapsed. Alarmed castmates rushed her to the hospital, where doctors insisted she needed immediate surgery. Again, she said no. In a desperate twist, Gloria phoned her ex-lover, Peter Turner. She asked if she could spend what time she had left in his family's home in Liverpool. Her condition was critical, yet even as her health spiraled, she insisted no one call her children or her doctors in the United States. Terrified for her well-being, Turner defied her wishes and reached out to her family, who flew to England straight away. Against medical advice, they escorted her onto a plane bound for America. She died on October 5, 1981, shortly after landing. Gloria's final days are poignantly detailed in Peter Turner's memoir, Film Stars Don't Die in Liverpool, later adapted into a film in 2017. To this day, viewers and readers remain captivated by the tragic blend of star power and personal ruin. For many, it's impossible to separate Gloria Grahame's artistry from the upheavals in her personal life. And yet, if we peel back the scandal, we uncover an actress of remarkable skill, someone who earned an Oscar in an era teeming with iconic talent. Her ability to dominate a film noir scene was nearly unrivaled, and her contributions to cinema shouldn't be forgotten. Perhaps her story is also a cautionary tale about the darker impulses of celebrity culture, how swiftly the public can turn, and how one sensational rumor can erase years of hard work. Today, she is remembered by film buffs for her roles in Crossfire, The Bad and the Beautiful, and In a Lonely Place, a trifecta of noir brilliance. But mainstream audiences, when they stumble upon her name, often first recall the scandal that ended her career. That's the tragedy. In a place like Hollywood, always buzzing with whispers about the next big controversy, it can be far easier to remember someone's downfall than their achievements. In the end, Gloria Grahame was both the star who shone bright in one of cinema's most celebrated eras and the actress whose life choices condemned her to infamy. For some, she's a lesson in how quickly Hollywood can turn its gaze away. For others, she's a sympathetic figure caught in the crossfire of rumor and moral panic. Either way, her saga leaves us with a question. If the spotlight had been kinder, would we speak of her as one of the greatest actresses of her generation? Or was she doomed the moment she let real-life scandal overshadow an undeniable talent? Whatever the answer, Gloria Grahame remains unforgettable proof that in Hollywood, achieving stardom is only half the battle. Surviving it can be the real challenge.